Christmas night is always the hardest night to fall asleep throughout the year, especially for a young girl like I was at the time. This happened to me in 2005 on the night of Christmas. I was 11 years old, still believing in Santa Claus and hoping he would leave me my presents that I have been good all year for. I was in my room watching Christmas movies. I was in the holiday spirit. The Nightmare Before Christmas was also my favorite. My plan was to stay awake until Santa came and to watch him with my little camera I got for my birthday last month. During the part of the movie where Jack the Skeleton was delivering presents to the kids replacing Santa, I heard a thud on my back porch. I got so excited. I rushed to grab my camera and hurried downstairs into my hiding spot. It was made out of blankets, pillows, and a dog bed. Sorta resembled a pillow fort, but it was my Santa catcher palace. I had quite the imagination. A few minutes go by, and I heard the back door open. I thought it was strange since Santa was supposed to come through the chimney, but in my excitement, I thought nothing of it. Soon enough, I saw Santa, a big, tall, burly man with his classic bag full of presents, scruffy white beard, and big, joyful belly. I was nervous at first. I didn't think Santa would be so tall, but I thought nothing of it. I saw him put down his bag and start walking to the Christmas tree. I got so excited, but made sure not to make any noise to be undetected. I remembered I had a camera and reached behind me to grab it as I turned around to take the picture of St. Nicholas. Then I saw him take off his beard. It was a strap-on, a fake beard. I didn't notice until after I took the picture of him that this was not Santa. Very quickly, I saw the man reach into the bag and make a little chuckle that was very raspy and scary sounding. He then opened the bag and smiled. He reached his hand into the bag and pulled out a bright machete. My heart filled with dread as I realized I was not dealing with the man I have been so excited to see all night, even going as far as preparing to take a picture of him. But instead, with a sinister man dressed up as Santa with a machete, I then noticed him walking to the kitchen. I thought maybe this was my chance to be able to go warn my dad about the person. My mom passed away 2 years ago from a murder. I was away with my grandma, and my dad was away on a business trip. Mom was home alone, and when I came home the next day with my grandma, we found her on the floor dead with stab wounds. I never saw her body. My grandma kept shielding me from it, but by her screams, I could tell it was bad and gruesome. I loved my mother. My dad has been here for me ever since. I am so thankful for him, for all that he's done for me. So, I made the decision to not wake up my dad, fearing that if I did, he would get hurt and killed just like Mom. So I went to our landline in our house to call the police. Safety was number one in my house ever since my mother's death. My father taught me everything I needed to know about safety, like 911, how to fight back a little, scream and kick, all the basics. So, with one swift motion after the man exited the room into the kitchen, I quietly ran to the landline and called the police. They picked up and asked the basic questions. If I'm safe, what's my address, if I'm with my parents. Then, they asked if I had seen the person's face. I was going to answer no until I remembered I took a picture of him with my camera when I thought that he was Santa. I told the operator yes, and she said help was on the way and would be there in 10 minutes. I live close to a police station, so this was convenient. And then out of nowhere, when I went to hang up the phone, I felt a large hand rest itself on my shoulder. I heard his sinister laugh. As I turned around, I saw him. It was the man before smiling, a wide smile with his machete in hand. He was about to slash me when I kicked him in the gut and ran upstairs to my dad's room. I woke him up as I locked the door. Once he heard banging on the door, followed by more sinister laughing. We heard the distant sounds of sirens. He then said calmly, "I'll be back," while laughing and banging on the door. Then it suddenly stopped as we heard stomping on the stairs. The police came and found the forced entry mark at the back door. He lockpicked the door. The police questioned me, and then I gave them the only piece of evidence I had, and that was his face. I showed them it, and they knew immediately who it was. It was an escaped murderer who has been on the run for weeks. 2 weeks go by. Nothing has happened. Me and my father both stayed with my grandma until things calmed down. Then, my father opens his phone and gasps. He sees the man that was in our house the night on the news article. It says, "Psychopath breaks in a house and kills family." He was arrested, and since we were witnesses for the previous crime he committed, we had to go to the station while he was in custody. Police were questioning him, asking him if there were other murders he committed that were not documented. He said yes. Slowly, a smile widened on his face as he looked at me and my father. My father's face turned pale as I looked at him. And then, all of a sudden, he leaped toward the man having to be dragged off by officers. We went home that night, and I heard my dad talking to my aunt, whose name will be Tara in this story. They were talking about the man, and there is one sentence I heard that will haunt me to this day. I couldn't make out everything. I could hear key words like break-in, the man's name, and my mom. Then it hit me. All the dread filled my body as I fell to the floor. I had realized that that man who tried to kill me last night was the same man who killed my mother.
Christmas is the best holiday. Yes, I know it is a very bold statement, but come on. Everything you could dream of happens then. But one faithful day ruined this joyful holiday for me. I was around 13 when this happened. My name is Lily, and I lived in southern Michigan when this took place. It was Christmas night. The house was warm, fire was lit, and joy was everywhere. And to top it off, I was on my walkie-talkie with my best friend Avery. Yes, I know I'm old. This story took place some time ago, in 1988. Me and Avery were so excited for Christmas. It was just the next day, but we couldn't fall asleep. So we talked on the walkie until one of us felt tired and fell asleep. That never happened, though. We got into a deep conversation about what the best thing about Christmas was, who would get better presents, and when we thought Santa would come. Avery loved Christmas, and she gave the best gifts. But she was always so thoughtful and caring, which is why I spent my Christmas night with her. Around 30 minutes after the conversation, Avery suddenly stopped replying. I said, "Avery, where did you go? Are you thinking of something to come back?" And, "Shh," she said, cutting me off mid-sentence. I stopped talking, and she said, "I think he's here." I whispered, "Who? Santa?" She responded with, "Yes." She told me she was going to creep downstairs to try to meet him and say hi, which at the time I felt was a great idea. I asked her when she met him if she could give him the walkie so I could talk to him as well. She giggled and said, "Of course." A few minutes go by. None of us are talking, but I can hear Avery walking around her house through the walkie. Then she finally spoke, saying, "I see him." I was so excited I was about to get to talk to Santa Claus, until Avery let out a gasp. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that it wasn't Santa, and that it's a guy by their tree putting stuff under it. I told her to go wake up her parents. She said, "Are you crazy? They'd kill me if they knew I was up this late. So despite my words and warnings, she went downstairs to try to talk with the figure. I heard her turn on her walkie and say, "Santa?" Then I heard the most blood-curdling scream. The last thing I heard was the walkie drop to the ground and then silence. I tried talking to her through the walkie, but there was no response. I got up to go to my parents' room to tell them about the situation when I heard the static on the walkie begin. I started talking. "Avery, what happened? Are you okay?" in a frantic panic. What I heard will haunt me to this day. I heard a man, not her father, but a man with a scratchy and deep voice say, "Merry Christmas, Lily. Enjoy it." Then it went quiet. I went to my parents' room, woke them up, told them about the situation. While I was telling them, I heard sirens outside the house. My parents got on their coats and tried to call Avery's parents. No response. We decided to drive over to their house since that was the direction the police were going. Once we arrived, we saw armed officers approach the house with guns drawn and with the ambulance. I feared the worst, hoping my friend was okay and that she wouldn't be harmed. Then I saw two officers come out with a strange man I didn't recognize. They put him in the back of the police car and drove off with him. The man was wearing makeup to try to look like a frosty snowman with Santa's coat on and a baseball cap. As the police drove off with the man, I saw it. Paramedics rushed towards the door as I saw 4 stretchers being carried off with people in it. The people were Avery's dad, her mom, her brother, and then her. I saw blood covering the blanket she was covered with, and then they were put into the ambulances and drove off. I had no words. I thought I just saw my friend dead. My best friend for years, dead just like that. My parents took me to the hospital since they were really good friends with Avery's parents as well. We tried to see the family, but allowed no visitors and told us we needed to leave. So without any other choice, that's what we did. About a week goes by with no word. I rarely got any sleep and was worried sick. Then my mom and dad came into my room. They said they figured out the news about Avery's family. My mom said they were attacked by some intruder and were hurt very badly. I asked if they were okay, if they were alive. Then she starts to cry. I started losing hope myself and crying before she even told me. Then she said, "They're all gone, Lily. I'm so sorry." I fell to the floor crying, kicking, and screaming. I lost my best friend that day, and all the memories I had with her won't be the same. The man whose name was addressed in court, which I had to attend since I was on the walkie with Avery. His name was Henry, a tall, skinny man that looked like he was on drugs. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in jail. During the trial, I learned something so disgusting that I hadn't known before. Before Avery's death, she never told me what the man was putting under the tree. It was revealed in court. The man had wrapped presents of dead animal heads, dead frogs, and a human hand. Please, lock your doors and be there for your friends. If they are ever about to do something they shouldn't, tell them. It may save their life.
Hello, my name is Jackson. I am 21 years old as of right now. But when the story took place, I was around 16 years old. Me and my mom love Christmas because it gave us an excuse to go out with family to go see Christmas lights. Me and my mom planned to see them Christmas lights for weeks. We invited so many members of our family that the car was packed. I told my mom since I was 16 and I just recently got my license that I could drive myself to the lights. She agreed and didn't think much of it since I was a reasonably responsible teenager. My mom made us all take a family photo in Christmas sweaters because that's what moms do, even if it's annoying at times. I loved it since I know one day it will end and I won't be able to get it back. Around 30 minutes after pictures, everyone got their coats and headed outside to the car. I did the same. I got into my car and started to drive down the road. The lights are around an hour away, so it was a pretty long distance. I was tailgating my parents when around halfway down the road, I heard a noise. I decided to stop on the side of the road and see what the problem was. I was going to text my mom to stop the car and wait for me since I had to stop, but I couldn't find my phone. I looked everywhere, but just couldn't find it. I saw my parents' car get out of my sight as I still looked at my phone. We were on an abandoned road since the Christmas lights were in a cornfield down in central Idaho. I decided to stop looking for my phone and figured I must have left it at home and just decided to focus on my car and see what the problem was. When I got to the tires, I saw that there was a nail in it. I was so mad, not only that I was stuck on the road in the middle of nowhere, but my tire was losing air. I waited about 10 minutes in my car when I saw a car's headlights in the distance. I hoped it was my parents coming back for me, but as I looked closer, it wasn't them. It was a red, rusted pickup truck. I said, "Fuck, why did it have to be a car that looked like that?" The truck pulled over to my car. Inside the car was a big, stereotypical farmer guy, heavy set with a farm hat and overalls on. He asked what the problem was, and I told him my tire went flat and didn't have a phone. He offered to take me wherever I needed to go. I was a pretty smart kid, but I ran out of options. Was I supposed to refuse this guy's help? I thought for a second and thought maybe I could just ask to borrow his phone instead of getting into the car with him. I asked the guy for his phone and he said he didn't have one and was very pushy about me getting into his car. He said, "It's cold out. You should be out here, especially all by yourself." I gave in, with no options available. I got into the car with him and we drove in the direction of the lights. He kept asking questions about my family like, how are they, where I'm from, and what's my address. I answered all the questions as nicely as possible other than the last one in order to not piss the man off. He stopped talking for about 20 minutes. Remember, the car rider was an hour and I was only driving for about 15 minutes before my tires popped. So I had to be in this car with this man for another 30 minutes until we made it to the destination. He said he needed to take a leak, so he pulled over and went into the woods to take care of his business. As he was leaving, I heard a noise in the bed of the truck. Every bad thing that could have gone through my mind did. I heard muffled screaming. I could make it out as, "Help! Help me! He's crazy!" I needed to do the right thing. I got out of the truck and opened the latch to the bed. There I saw a boy around my age. Blood coming down his face with duct tape around his mouth and handcuffed to a back pipe. I took the duct tape off and he was freaking out, saying, "Don't hurt me, get away from me." I told him I was here to help and where the keys to the handcuffs were. He said the man had them. I heard whistling in the distance and told the kid to keep quiet and I was going to get him out of there. I closed the bed and got into the truck like nothing ever happened. The man re-entered the truck and we began driving again. As we were driving, I was looking around the truck for the keys for a weapon. The man noticed my desperate attempts to find something and asked, "What you looking for, bud?" I said nothing. "I'm just cold." He then said, "I know a faster way," and then started to drive down this dark path. I was hyperventilating, and in my wits of fear, I spotted a little shiv in the compartment on the door side of the car. I needed a reason to get out of the car, so I told the man I was having a panic attack and to pull over. He agreed, and once he stopped, I quietly took the shiv out of the spot and stuffed it in my pocket. The man walked over to me, asking if I was okay. As soon as he said that, he grabbed my shoulder with his hand and spun me around. He had a rag in his hand with some alcohol on the rag. I was guessing it was to knock me out. I held my breath, pushed him away, reached into my pocket, grabbed the shiv, and stabbed him in the gut with it. He fell over bleeding. I told him to give me the key or else I would kill him. He gave me the keys, then I demanded the phone. He gave me his phone, then shiv still pointed at him. I called the police on his phone. I told him to stay down as I went over to the bed of the truck, opened it, and saw the boy. He wasn't moving. I didn't know whether he was faking it, passed out from lack of oxygen or blood loss, or if he was dead. I stayed on the line with the operator for the entire time until the police arrived and the man was taken in an ambulance due to the stab wound, and the boy was taken away on a stretcher. I contacted my parents on the man's phone and my mom was wailing, feeling awful that she didn't come back to get me. She came back, got my car picked up, and drove home. A few days later, I was scrolling through Twitter and saw that same man's mugshot on the local news profile. He was arrested for 6 counts of kidnapping, 5 counts of manslaughter, and 2 counts of attempted manslaughter. I then scrolled again and saw the boy I rescued. He was alive. He passed out because of blood loss from the trauma to the head. He was rushed to our local hospital. I asked my parents if we could go see him, and they agreed. When he arrived, the nurse let me in without question because the boy was pleading to meet me. Once I entered the room, I saw him. He looked so familiar. I couldn't tell before because the blood covering his face, but I recognized him. He went to my school. I never talked to him before, but I knew who he was. I walked over to him and he gave me a hug in the hospital bed. He told me that he was at home and went outside to get the mail when this man walking on the sidewalk hit him in the head with a heavy object, then took him to his parked car right next to him and drove away. Me and the boy are best friends now, and I won't mention his name because I want to keep him safe. Whatever you do, never hitchhike. There is always another way in getting around something.